All right, welcome back to the Atlanta Child Murders Revisited. It is 16 March. This is video number 31, and we're going to get back into this fantastically interesting document about Hirsch Friedman and his case suing the government for some kind of compensation for his undercover work that he did. So, it says Mr. Friedman won a trial in early 1979 involving an attempted license revocation. Coppola congratulated Mr. Friedman in the courthouse corridor, invited him to have a celebratory drink that evening. Also, Mr. T, manager of the She Club, hired Friedman to represent him in a criminal matter. Mr. T paid Mr. Friedman in cash. When he did, he told Mr. Friedman the money was from Carl. It's Carl Coppola. All right. So it says in early 1979, Lenny Lowenstein, a client of Mr. Friedman, who owned a nightclub, told Friedman that a city zoning inspector called John Collicott was trying to extort money from him. Now you remember, um, I no, I don't. I'm not sure if John Collicott is the same person that was the Atlanta. Um, what do you call it? Solicitor. And you remember, Mary Welcome was the Atlanta solicitor from 74 to 78. And then she had to exit because her boss went out and killed a bunch of people, escaped from prison, killed a bunch of people, Michael Thieves. And so Maynard Jackson couldn't be seen to be taking money and employing an employee of Michael Thieves. So this new guy came in and he was very aggressive, but I think he also had some zoning inspectors like this John Collicott that were pretty corrupt. So if you know that the business that you're going after is illegitimate, that means it's owned and run by the mob, you can try to shake them down because what are they going to do? Are they going to complain that, hey, Your Honor, we run a legitimate mob business here, and this guy is trying to shake us down for money that we extorted from our strippers and prostitutes and stuff. So anyway, it says Mr. Friedman contacted city authorities and was put in touch with the City of Atlanta detective Aubrey Melton. Melton was already investigating a claim that Collicott was trying to extort money from another nightclub owner, David Webb. This was a joint investigation between the City of Atlanta Police and the FBI. The two agencies had agreed that the FBI Special Agent John McAvoy would be the case agent. I think you remember Melton. I think Melton was on the Atlanta because this is 78. So, no, this is 79. So I believe Melton was one of the detectives on the Atlanta child murders task force, also, if I remember correctly. After being interviewed by Melton and McAvoy, Mr. Friedman agreed to assist them by discussing the attempt extortion of Lowenstein with Collicott while wearing a concealed body recorder and wire transmitter. Friedman did this. In the conversation, Collicott stated he wanted an expense-paid trip to Las Vegas because, the mob, they run the casinos there. Friedman acted for the FBI, agreed to this, and accompanied Collicott to Las Vegas, where further discussions were covertly recorded. Wow. So you got a corrupt city zoning inspector, and then trying to shake down a corrupt nightclub, strip club owned by the mob. Wow. And the FBI is trying to help them. Anyway, in the spring of 1979, Special Agent McAvoy and Detective Melton decided that the Atlanta nightclub industry was probably being infiltrated by organized crime. You think? They felt the Gambinos. Oh, wow. Boy, does that sound familiar. Doesn't that sound familiar? Isn't that exactly what I've been saying for years now? An organized crime group with whom associate Carl Coppola were moving in. They felt that perhaps Ronald Zappi, the owner of the Numbers nightclub, was a member of the Gambino organization. You think? At some point, Melton developed the theory that John Cullicutt, the city zoning inspector, was actually working for the Gambino interests in seeking to put nightclubs not associated with the Gambinos out of business. Now, isn't that exactly what I told you that Mary Welcome was hired to do? So here now we have the new guy, and he's running around trying to put businesses not owned by the Gambinos out of business and shaking them down. So that's exactly the scenario that I told you that was happening. So you got the Gambinos, you got Michael Thieves sitting in prison right there, and he's basically donating money to Maynard Jackson and to Andrew Young to make sure that Mary Welcome stays in business. But of course, when he gets breaks out of prison and kills, Roger Underhill and Galante, Maynard Jackson can't be seen taking money from the mob. So he makes sure that Mary Welcome, takes a hike. So she's replaced by a new guy that goes all out, going after non-Gambino businesses again. Okay. And then later, we're going to read that Mary Welcome runs again, this time for the Fulton County solicitor, to do the same thing, work for the Gambino mob, and run out their competition. Okay? Again, let's make it clear. Atlanta is an open city. Okay? It's the Wild West. It's whoever can, has the strongest army can control the territory. Okay? But if you can control the government people, the inspectors, the enforcers, the police, it gives you an edge up. So the Gambinos are trying to make their mark. They're trying to run the other families out of town. And they're fighting back. And it's a war. It's a Wild West porn war, okay? Porn and adult flesh war, okay? All right. So exactly what this judge just stated about Hirsch Friedman is what I've been telling you for the last, 2 or 3 years, is exactly what's going on, okay? And I'm not some fucking genius. I just read the documents, okay? And then I make deductions, logical deductions. And I came up with this without even reading this document, okay? So it says, also in the spring of 1979, agents Melton and McAvoy asked Mr. Friedman to assist him in investigating a Miami-based distributor of pornography materials who was believed to have tie-in with organized crime, specifically the Gambinos. And you'll find out that that organization actually was first set up by Michael Thieves, and then the Gambinos took it over after he went to prison. They asked Mr. Friedman to accompany them to Miami, visit the distributor's premises, and engage the principals in conversation while wearing a body recorder. During the trip, McAvoy, Melton, and Friedman specifically discussed the reputation of the principals as dangerous, violent people. At about this time, Mr. Friedman specifically discussed with the FBI Special Agent McAvoy. Wasn't McAvoy involved in the Atlanta child murders investigation also? It seems like I remember that name. I'm not certain. Matter of fact, he had to have been, because you remember Popcorn said they took the Atlanta child murders cases, and for each victim, they assigned 2 FBI agents. So if you've got 29 victims or 30 victims, you're going to have 60 FBI agents. And there weren't 60 FBI agents in the Atlanta field office. That's why they bring in all those extra FBI agents. All right. At about this time, Mr. Friedman specifically discussed McAvoy his concerns that his safety and that his children might be jeopardized. McAvoy, on behalf of the FBI, told him that the FBI would protect him in the event there was a threat. In such event, the FBI would do whatever was necessary. By 1979, Friedman, acting for the FBI, covertly taped many conversations with persons associated with the nude nightclub and disco industry who were suspected of violations of the law. Typically, Agent McAvoy and Mr. Friedman would agree in advance that no attorney client relationship between Mr. Friedman and any client would be violated by the planned activity. Wow, that's a fine edge right there. If your client or business is owned by the Gambinos and you're working for the FBI to bust the Gambinos, I don't know how you can maintain your attorney-client privilege. In August of 1979, so this is literally a month after the Atlanta child murders start, Mr. Friedman covertly recorded a conversation between himself, John Cullicott, I'm going to have to go look up all these damn names, and Carl Coppola. Cullicott was under investigation at that time. In the course of the conversation, Mr. Coppola made a comment reflecting that he had an interest in the She Club. In response, Mr. Friedman said, I'm always the last to know who owns what. During the conversation, Coppola freely discussed a pending criminal matter in Florida in which he was a defendant. He and Friedman discussed the possibility of bribing public officials in connection with the matter and another case. The tape was turned over to the FBI and transcribed. You ever wonder why the mob guys always have these conversations like inside these clubs, discos, where the music's really, really loud and they're over in a corner, or some strip club and they're over in the corner and there's lights kind of flashing around and you can't really see anything unless you get real close. You can't really hear anything unless you get real close. That's the reason. They're hoping that the loud music and the glitter balls and the darkness will cover up the conversation in any video that's being taken if they're being videotaped. Because even though they own the club, okay, there's nothing that could stop the FBI from going in and planting a camera in the ceiling or in the glitter ball, okay, and wiring the whole damn place for sound. Anyway, at this point, the FBI, let's see. The FBI confronted John Collicott with the evidence they had against him. Collicott agreed to act as an informant for the FBI. See, that's how it works, folks. You start with the smaller fish, you bust them, you put the heat on them, and then you work your way up. But see, this is why the crime families, the Gambinos, they have layers, okay? If Collicott gets arrested or gone, okay, or goes to prison, they'll hire another guy. If what was his name? Coppola gets arrested, goes to prison, they got another guy waiting in the wings. They move him around, okay? So when one guy gets out of prison and another guy goes into prison, that guy will replace the guy who just got out of prison will replace the guy that's going to prison. That's how that shit works, okay? At this point, the FBI to stop using Mr. Friedman's undercover assistants. The record does not reflect that the FBI formally told Friedman his services would no longer be needed. However, he was never asked by the FBI to do undercover work again. And see, that's how callous the FBI is. When they'll use you until they're done with you, and then when they're done with you, they cast you out. Okay? It'd be like Jesus, what was that? Peter and Jesus. Oh, I never knew you. The record does not reflect the FBI formally told Friedman his services was no longer be needed. However, he was never asked by the FBI to do undercover work again. Nonetheless, Mr. Friedman continued a social relationship with Agent McAvoy. They saw each other regularly and double dated, which I don't think they are allowed to do shit like that anymore. McAvoy was the best man in Friedman's wedding in 1981. The two men frequently discussed law enforcement matters. Friedman volunteered information and ideas to McAvoy, which he thought the FBI would be interested in. Some information and ideas were valuable. Now, did they bust all these people and the Gambinos stop using Friedman at this time? I'm not sure. In December of 1979, Mr. Friedman was contacted by Mr. Weiss, who had been sentenced on a felony conviction in federal court. Weiss stated he had information that Roscoe Dean, a member of the Georgia legislature, was involved in a plot to kill Governor George Busbee. Weiss offered to make his information available if the prosecutor would bring his cooperation to the attention of the sentencing judge. Friedman contacted the prosecutor. Weiss's information was conveyed to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. As a consequence, the GBI asked Friedman to do undercover work on the investigation of Roscoe Dean. I don't know who Roscoe Dean is, but actually, Roscoe Dean sounds like he's probably one of those guys that's related to the Sanders brothers, like one of those racist guys. In January 1980, Mr. Friedman wore a concealed body recorder and, posing as a drug smuggler, discussed the possible sale of cocaine with Mr. Dean. Mr. Friedman then arrested him. Okay. The arrest and Friedman's dual role as attorney and law enforcement consultant and undercover investigator received wide attention in the media. How could a lawyer, a civilian, arrest somebody anyway? Maybe they deputized him. I don't know. In January 1980, Friedman became concerned that the publicity about his law enforcement activities might cause Carl Coppola to feel threatened. Friedman feared violent retaliation as Coppola had a reputation for violence. He and either Detective Melton or Agent McAvoy arranged for Tony Romano. God, they got all these fucking mobster. Yo, it's Tony Romano and Coppola, Carl Coppola, yeah. A client of Friedman's who owned bathhouses, to speak to Coppola to assure him that Friedman was not investigating him. Romano reported back to them that he had spoken with Coppola and everything was all right. In March of 1980, yeah, right, sure. In March of 1980, a person identified as a female source reported to Detective Melton that she had overheard a statement made by John Fisher, stepfather of Carl Coppola. Fisher had said that a stack of newspaper articles concerning the Roscoe Dean trial should not be thrown away. Fisher said that if Friedman ever tried to come after them, that they would get him first. Melton related this to Agent McAvoy, but not to Friedman. McAvoy did not report it to Friedman either. Oh, looks like I'm not going to be able to finish this article. In the summer of 1980, Mr. Friedman did uncover work for the GBI in a case involving an attempt to bribe someone in the Clayton County District Attorney's Office. Clayton County, 1980. Hey, that's when I lived there. Anyway, the defendant was a lawyer for whom Friedman had once worked. Friedman testified at the trial in 1981, which resulted in a conviction. This case also received considerable publicity. The FBI supplied surveillance equipment for this investigation, but otherwise did not participate. In 1982, Mr. Friedman introduced Emery, an underworld figure, to Agent McAvoy. As a result, Emery was enlisted as a paid informant for the FBI. You see, this is the problem that Friedman did and will do, is he didn't try to hide or his working with the FBI or the police or the GBI. And that's a very dangerous thing to do. Let me see if I got another article here. Hold on. Let me turn this off. Hold on one second. All right. So I found a longer version here. So here we go. So it says in the spring of 1982, Mr. Friedman announced his candidacy for Solicitor General of Fulton County. Okay. This is the exact same position that Mary Welcome had, except in the county and not in the city of Atlanta. Okay. So what happened is because of Mary Welcome's work and the work of her successor, they managed to push out most of the non-Gambino mob-owned adult businesses, strip clubs, porn shops, prostitution rings, stuff like that, out of Atlanta. And then they just set up shop in DeKalb County. They set up shop in Fulton County. You know, so this is what they're doing. They're continuing their war. Okay, Davis is still trying to run that for them, although he's having less and less influence from prison there. And Jimmy Jen doesn't seem as much interested in going after the other mob characters. He's more interested in running the music business and the porn end. So it says, his campaign emphasized his connections with law enforcement and specifically his participation in bringing organized crime figures and corporate public officials to justice. Who can Payne brochure said in 1979, Mr. Hirsch Friedman was appointed as the first special consultant on organized crime and political corruption to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. In this position, he worked closely with the Federal Bureau of Investigation as well as state and local law enforcement agencies in bringing organized crime figures and corrupt public officials to justice. Not very smart. So if you're working with the mob, okay, as their legal defense, and then at the same time you're working with the FBI trying to bust your clients, okay, and then you come out later and tout that on your resume for while you're running for public office, that's just stupidity, okay? Because, you know, this is only 3 years later. People have long memory, okay? Especially being a rat, being betrayed. So you're signing your own death warrant. Anyway, the brochure also said, as an extension of his role as an officer of the court, Mr. Friedman had conducted several undercover investigations for national, state, and local law enforcement agencies into organized crime and political corruption. In mid-July, so this is 1982, okay, the spring. This is right after, okay, right after Wayne Williams got convicted. Wayne Williams got convicted in March. He's running in April, okay? Guess what Mary Welcome's doing since she lost that trial? She's going to run for Fulton County Solicitor also against Friedman. We all know Mary Welcome's connection to Ed Garland and Ed Garland's connection to organized crime and the Gambinos. So guess who they're going to want to win that election? Definitely not Friedman, especially since he's come out as working undercover with the fucking FBI. Not a very smart move. Anyway, let me look at my time here. Hold on one second. I forgot to write it down. All right. We got 35 minutes, so 4:35. Okay. So it says, in mid-July 1982, Mr. Friedman introduced Special Agent McAvoy, to the female source. She was the person who had told Detective Melton in 1980 about the comment made by Carl Coppola, stepfather. The female source was a social friend of both Mr. Friedman's and his wife. I guess Beth. She worked in Mr. Friedman's campaign in the spring and summer of 1982. Mr. McAvoy dated the female source many times during the late July and early August. During this time, the two of them socialized with Mr. Friedman. See, that's totally fucked up. Okay, you're using your job to get yourself a girlfriend as an FBI agent. That's pretty fucked up, Mr. McAvoy. Anyway, while she was dating Special Agent McAvoy, the female source also had a social relationship with Richard T., who she identified as the manager of a stress clinic located in the same building as Mr. Friedman's law office. The record contains no precise testimony as to the services offered by the stress clinic. I'm sure it had a happy ending. However, the female source um, visited Richard there and evidently believed it was a front for the distribution of illegal drugs. He called Detective Melton and she called Detective Melton and told him that. Well, why didn't she just tell her boyfriend, Mr. McAvoy, the FBI agent? She also said she had seen people there who were Coppola associates. She said she felt the clinic was a Coppola operation. You think? The female source also told Detective Melton she had discussed her concerns about the stress clinic with Agent McAvoy. Well, there you go. And also Mr. Friedman. Melton did not spell out exactly what she said, and she said she told Friedman and McAvoy. The court infers that the female source likely gave approximately the same information to Mr. Friedman and Agent McAvoy as she gave to Detective Melton concerning the stress clinic. She had a close relationship with each of them. None knew they were friends and viewed them as sharing the same interests. She was dating Agent McAvoy. She was working in Mr. Friedman's campaign, and she had known him socially for a couple of years. She had provided information to Detective Melton since at least the beginning of 1980. Therefore, Mr. Friedman knew of her theory that the clinic was a Coppola operation. I guarantee you this fucking place is in Buckhead, folks. Okay. So let me just recap, okay, what I said on previous videos. Mr. Friedman, Hirsch Friedman, is working for an attorney for the Gambino owned businesses in Atlanta. Okay. The strip clubs, the porn shops, whatever. Whenever someone gets in trouble, they call Mr. Friedman. Okay. And he goes and gets them bailed out or appears in court for them. Okay. So they just call a number. Um, so that Gold Club right there, that's now the Trader Joe's, that's at the back of the um, studio on Shadow Lawn where Wayne Williams would take the kids. Okay. That's where Mr. Friedman's client was at. Mr. Friedman also started in 1978 a real estate company located at 3179 Maple Street, two businesses up from Ed Garland's legal office, okay, in the same business building location that would be the showroom, I guess, for Patricia McLean, who was good friends with Ed Garland and was the former girlfriend of Michael Thevis. Okay, you see how it all comes around? Boom, folks. And of course, Michael Thevis was working for the Gambinos and running his business from prison. Right there in the Atlanta child murders were happening all around him. Let's not forget, okay, that one of the kids was last seen at a store right across the street from the Atlanta child murders. The Atlanta Federal Penitentiary. Okay? Aaron Wyke, I believe. And another associate was last seen getting into a white station wagon with Wayne Williams just right up blocks away from the Atlanta Federal Penitentiary. Okay? So there's all these connections. And see, that's the problem. They didn't have the internet back then. They didn't have access to all these resources that I have now. And so I can take, and I remember all these fucking locations and names, okay? So I can take all this information and put it in my little AI brain there, and boom, it pops out. Well, shit, there's a connection there. There's a connection there. There's fucking connections everywhere. Like I said, the Atlanta child murders, okay, was just a sideshow to what was going on in Atlanta in the 70s, 80s, all the way up to probably today. I mean, my God, folks, just Google child pornography, Atlanta, Georgia, right now in your Google, hit send or hit enter, and you're going to come up with article after article after article after article. Okay. Policeman found with child pornography in his phone. There was a guy in Roswell, a government official, a council person, whatever, found with child pornography. It's literally all the time, everywhere. The problem and what made the Atlanta child murders so big was that Wayne Williams was killing them. Okay. And not only was he killing them, he was leaving the bodies out to be found because when they killed people, it, very rarely in snuff films, okay, they disposed of the body where it never would be found. Okay. But he was disposing of them to be found. So you got little lowly little Wayne Williams, okay. He's hooked up with Jimmy Jen, and Jimmy Jen has hooked him up with the Gambino organization with their Michael Thieves and the child pornography. He's recruiting kids, okay, but he doesn't just stick to recruiting kids. He's he either starts killing them just because he's a mean son of a bitch, or he's told to kill them. Hey, this one's talking too much. Get rid of that one. Okay. I don't lean as much towards that because it seems that he's finding them randomly. Okay. Because there's no phone call that's tracing back to him. They're not getting a phone call and then they're running out the door and meeting Wayne. They're meeting Wayne on the way to a store or on the way to someplace. Some are meeting him, looks like an arranged meeting, but the vast majority, the way the stories go, is that some kid was walking down the street, going to the store. Some neighbor asked him, go do something. And look at almost every instance here, okay? They were coming back from someplace. So what you have is this criminal underworld operation that was going on before the Atlanta child murders, during the Atlanta child murders, and after the Atlanta child murders, of which several public officials were being bribed, were being involved in the criminal activity, maybe just taking bribes. But just because you're a politician and you're taking kickbacks for, there's a lot of construction going on, highway bridge contracts, highway contracts, airport contracts, terminals being built, electrical jobs being bid on. Just because you're taking kickbacks or bribes for that doesn't mean that you know that Wayne Williams is killing children, okay? And maybe if you're a corrupt lawyer, maybe you're handling cases when, prostitution in a strip club or selling drugs in a strip club. But that doesn't mean Wayne Williams is killing little black kids, right? So there's all these various layers that they go down, these little rabbit holes or little shunted off that all come back to the Gambinos, organized crime, or some kind of organization, but down these rabbit holes, one doesn't know what is happening in the rabbit hole right next to them. Okay, you understand what I'm saying? You can have multiple people committing multiple illegal acts, but not and all be part of the same organization and not know they're part of the same organization and not know what the other guy is doing. Okay? So just because Carl Coppola is working for the Gambinos and running the strip clubs doesn't know that he knows that Wayne Williams is killing fucking kids. He may know Wayne Williams. He may think he's a weirdo, whatever, brainiac kid. He may even use him as enforcement sometimes. But he may not know what's going on. That's how the real world works. You think about it, like I've said many times. You think about your job right now where you're working at. Say you're working in an office building. You're on, say the office is the entire building, 10, 20 floors. You may work as a secretary on the first floor, but you have no fucking idea what's going on the top floor. They could be, you know, running around naked up there doing whatever. You have no idea what's going on, okay? I remember reading this book by this guy. Um, he had been involved in he was from Canada, and he made Aliyah, just like I did, to Israel. He moved to Israel. And when his parents brought him there as a teenager. And when he went in the army, he served very well in the army. Just about the end of his army career, he was approached, okay? And they're looking for smart guys, leaders, stuff like that. Usually, mostly officers. He was an officer. And he was approached. Now, they may approach, I'm telling you right now, in the world today, this is why I always laugh when people say the Mossad's everywhere and they're taking over everybody. At most, operating right now, there's probably no more than 200 Mossad agents in the entire world, okay? At most. There may be 1,000, 2,000 people in Mossad, but those are all research and support activities, okay? There's only, they call them katzas, of which 50 of those are assassins. The guys who train to assassinate. All the other guys don't train to kill. Specifically. They train with guns to defend themselves, but not to kill, not the assassinations. Okay? So the katzas, the 150 of them run around the world. Okay? And so if they got 150, they probably every year recruit 100 or 200 people, of which maybe even more. Only maybe 10 of them will make it. Okay? And this guy, I can't remember his name. If you watch that movie Munich, that's based on, no, not Munich. Anyway, it's another book. Um, so he talks about in this book what he did. Okay? And he never met any of the other agents. Okay? There were very, very few people he knew in the Mossad. Very few. Okay? They were usually, they're not going to let the guys that may flunk out get to know everybody. They don't bring them in to show them around give them a tour of the office, okay? He rarely ever went into an office. They would give him assignments, and they were testing him out, and usually it was set up an operation and do this. We want to find this information, whatever, in Tel Aviv or Jerusalem or Haifa. And then they would send around the cops or people dressed like cops or military guys. They have military police there also. Okay. And they would arrest them. They knew who they were, beat them up, trying to get them confessed that they were agents, whatever. They weren't really agents yet. Okay. And he made it through all that. And he said out of the group of very few people that he saw, maybe 30 people, Only maybe three of them, supposedly that he knows of, made it. He doesn't know what happened to the others. Okay, so it's very compartmentalized. Okay, but I remember this one story he told that, and I don't know if he actually went there or he was there, but apparently this place right around the corner from where I live, okay, um, on Mount Herzl, okay, there is a resort pool area, okay, that it's commercially open. It's private, commercially open, but the majority of their business goes to the Mossad. Okay, whenever they need, the Mossad needs that place. They have a little convention building. They got cottages. They got a pool. It's like a private resort. Okay, and he said that um, they would have fucking orgies there because nobody could stop them. They could do whatever they wanted. Okay, so there'd be people running around. Now I don't know if he went there himself personally and saw this. I very much doubt it, but I definitely know he'd heard about it. Okay, because those people were so powerful and everything was so compartmentalized that nobody was going to say anything. It's like this thing with the Epstein files. They were blood brothers. Okay, they defended each other. They protected each other. They also slept with each other's wives. You know, when they'd send them on missions for a year or so, they kept their wives company. Okay, it's like not good, not good at all. And for some reason, all this stuff became too much for him, and he quit. And he wrote a book about his experiences. And he never actually went on a mission outside of Israel. He was just accepted, and then he was waiting for a mission, and then he'd say he saw enough. Okay, but I always find it interesting, that book, because I know the place he's talking about. It's right around the corner. I used to go hiking right by this fucking place all the time. And I mean, there's just cameras and fucking fence lines, and the walls like fucking 20 feet high. You have to go up to see down into it, and you still can't see very well. Okay, but yeah, I'd go hiking. It's right across the valley. I mean, I'm here. It's over there. Okay, um, but I remember him talking about that. But that's what we're talking about. And think about any place that you work. Like I was saying, you don't know what's going on in the cubicle right next to you. Okay, when your boss gets your coworker and they go into a conference room, you don't have no fucking idea what they're talking about. They could be talking about you. Okay, you have no clue. So, in a mob organization, organized crime, it's only you're only going to know what they let you know, and you're definitely not going to ask fucking questions because as soon as you start asking questions, they're going to fuck you up. But if you've been with that organization for a while, you're going to know not to ask questions. Okay? So that's how that works. You might have no idea how I got off on this tangent, but we'll get back to this document here. All right. And see, and also you see that also happen that agent, even though Friedman is friends with McAvoy, you know, they go dating together, best men at his wedding. McAvoy doesn't tell him everything. Okay. The female source also told Detective Melton in the same call that Mr. Friedman was planning to appear on a radio question and answer session for the candidates for Solicitor General, and he was going to make some specific comments about criminal activity in the area of Atlanta where nude entertainment clubs are concentrated. Although he did not plan to name any names, she thought specific individuals, and apparently including Carl Coppola, would feel singled out and threatened. She opined that Friedman was going to get killed. Detective Melton discussed the gist of her conversation with Agent McAvoy. And you don't know. Maybe they were using Friedman as bait. Yeah, he gets killed. Oh, now we definitely got something on Coppola. Okay, but they can sit back and say, well, we didn't know. You know, it happens, folks. The FBI. Okay, it's called protecting your own ass and protecting your own career. To further your career, okay, a lot of people will do certain fucking things or allow things to happen. Isn't doing something or not doing something, or isn't not doing something the same as doing something almost in some instances? The telephone call from the female source to Detective Melton did not trigger a warning by either Detective Melton or Agent McAvoy to Mr. Friedman concerning the stress clinic. Neither did they mention to him the 1980 comment of John Fisher. However, Agent McAvoy met with Mr. Friedman and warned him not to be too specific in his comments during the radio broadcast. I wouldn't have mentioned anything. Anyway, on August 17th, 1982, Mr. Friedman's car, which was parked in front of his residence, blew up when he started it. One of Mr. Friedman's legs was severed at the knee. He sustained other bodily injuries from shrapnel. The explosion damaged Mr. Friedman's residence as well as his car. His son Darren sustained minor injuries to his feet from the glass particles on the floor of the house. All right. The parties have entered into stipulation concerning the identity of the person who they believe planted the bomb. The stipulation is as follows. All right. Got 13 minutes. On July 28, 1981, David Neil Bennett was arrested for aggravated assault. The assault resulted from an incident which took place when Mr. Bennett was attempting to serve a warrant for Chambly Bonding Company in a bonding forfeiture. Mr. Bennett hired Mr. Friedman to represent him. After mistrial, he was eventually convicted in a jury trial on February 4th, 1982, of the reduced charge of simple assault and sentenced to 12 months. Mr. Friedman filed a motion for a new trial. Following the trial, Mr. Bennett was told that a transcript would be necessary to, I guess that's perfect or protect his rights to a new trial or appeal. Several payments were made on a transcript, the last of which occurred within a few weeks of the date of the bombing and also after the bombing. In March 1982, Bennett obtained a passport. Before August 1982, he made calls to the visa department of more than one foreign embassy. On June 17th, he put a 357 Magnum on layaway and began making small payments on it. On August 8th, 1982, later in the day, wait, hold on. So this is almost a week, 9 days before Friedman gets blown up, okay? Later in the day, on which Mary Welcome had participated in a radio forum with Mr. Friedman because they're running against each other, so it's like a debate relating to their competing upcoming candidacy for the Fulton County solicitor. Mrs. Welcome had a call from a person she claimed to be unknown, who said essentially he would not have said those things. He should have not said those things about you, but don't worry about Hirsch Friedman. He won't be around in November. On August 13th, 1982, so this is 4 days before, David Moore saw an individual who was positively identified as David Neil Bennett on a ridge that overlooked Hirsch Friedman's office. Mr. Moore recognized Mr. Bennett from television and later picked him out of photographs of different persons shown to him by persons investigating the bombing. Ms. Welcome tape recorded a phone conversation she had with Mr. Bennett on September 2nd, 1982. She said that Mr. Bennett told her that he recognized her as the attorney for Wayne Williams, and also stated he knew her from working security at the Bank of the South building, where she said he had spoken to her before as she signed in and out. Interesting. Hold on one second. All right. So there it is, 55 Marietta Street and the Bank of the South building. That's it right there. Let's take a look at where it's at, and then we're going to get some geography from this. Okay. All right. All right. Hold on one second. Google Maps, satellite. So you remember Mary Welcome, um, when she lost her job in '78 as Atlanta's solicitor under Mayor Jackson. Uh, Maynard Jackson. She ended up downtown working for Ed Garland, doing incorporation papers. She also was teaching classes at Georgia State, or was it Georgia State? I think it was like the John Marshall School of Law at Georgia State. Okay, all right. Yeah, remember she was at the Friedman building. And matter of fact, it was called the Friedman building. Actually, I think it was the Friedman building. Um, but yeah, right there. The Georgia Bar Association is actually located right next door, and Attorney Deitch, I believe, Beavis's attorney is right there. And actually, look at that. She's right within eye distance of the FBI office right there. And there's 5 points. Wow, she's right in the heart of everything. And I think, yeah, there's Underground Atlanta. Yeah. Okay, so let's go back. I think we're almost out of time here. Yeah, we got about 7 minutes. Miss Welcome told investigating agents that she recognized the voice and that the unidentified man who called her before. Sometime before August 1982, Mr. Bennett had asked his roommate if he knew someone who would want to buy some blasting caps or knew anyone who had caps for sale. In mid 1982, in mid August 1982, um, okay, so I know where this is going. So they're trying to pin this on Mr. Bennett, which he may have been involved. Okay, well, you think about it. Who's got more of a beef to kill someone? A mobster who's been betrayed by his lawyer and sold out to the FBI, or a guy who spent a few months in jail, okay, for beating up someone, and he didn't like that his lawyer didn't get him off. Now, who do you think has the bigger motivation to kill somebody? Now, it could be that the mob found out about Mr. Bennett's beef with Mr. Friedman and offered him money to kill him, okay, and also assisted him in making a bomb. Anyway, Mr. Bennett's roommate was questioned on September 1st, 1982. Hold on one second. So you got about 5 minutes. He said he knew nothing about the envelope and the card, but thought the handwriting was his roommate's. Oh, I missed a part up top there. There's no evidence that Mr. Bennett had formal training in explosive, but has been interested in them since high school when he attempted to blow up a high school commode. During the same period, another device was found at the school and was described as an explosive material wrapped in aluminum foil when wrapped in soldering wire. Well, it doesn't take much, especially nowadays, to make a damn bomb, folks. A girl he knew stated that he had told her that he and Mary Welcome were real tight and that Mary Welcome had helped him in several cases. Mr. Bennett was a very explosive nature, and many people associated with him in the past can testify to this. So think about this. Again, you got this deadly combination. You've got Mr. Bennett, who thinks his attorney didn't do all he could do to keep him out of jail. Okay. And he's mad about that. You've got Mary Welcome, who's working for the Gambinos, and she's running against Friedman. And then you've got Coppola, who feels like he's been betrayed by Friedman for working for the FBI. Okay. So you've got this deadly triangle here that they're all going to benefit if Friedman is killed. And they're all in communication. As an example of the explosive personality is a former supervisor at a security firm patrolling parking lots reported that Bennett pulled a gun on co-employee in the parking lot and threatened to kill him. Another incident involved a co-employee who made a complaint. After the complaint was made, hate notes appeared on the doors of the parking lot at the Atlanta Center. These notes appeared to be aimed at the employee and his supervisors. They said, "You're going to die. Be glad you're not on my shift. Think sucks." You know, snitches get stitches. Mr. Bennett was seen at Northside Hospital after Mr. Friedman was taken there. So he's definitely stalking him. On September 10th, 1982, a search warrant was executed at Bennett's apartment. Items found included an Atlanta Journal newspaper dated August 17th, 1982, articles from the Atlanta Journal newspaper dated June 9th, safe use of handling of explosives, and an envelope from Friedman, Shopson and Woodland PC, which contained a letter and a bill of sale from a vehicle. A map of Friedman's residence had been drawn on the back of the bill of sale. Hobby fuse and can of fuse were found. Soft drinks cans were wrapped in wire were found. So, okay, that's about it there. But yeah. So if you've got this guy's already mad, Coppola's definitely got a reason to help him. And Mary Wilkins going to benefit if the guy gets blown up and can't continue his campaign against her. All right? Okay, so that's all for now, and we will continue. All right, take care.